Hey everyone, welcome. This is the weekly briefing. It's great to kind of do this end of year moment here. You can see I've asked some really amazing people just to kind of connect some of the dots that we put out there for the year, but especially some of the trends that we're seeing and some of the ups and downs of what's going on. Um, what would be best? You guys want me to, can you guys all handle like a 20-second introduction without going over too much? A 10-second introduction of yourself without going over too much? Because if we spent 15 minutes introduction, we're gonna miss out on half the conversation. Does that sound fair?
Yep.
I believe in us. We
Okay.
can do it.
All right, I'll start with you, Joe. Set the good example.
Great. I'm Joe Valentine, Rev Think Advisor, and I focus on sales and strategy.
Wow, that was good. How
Nice.
about
I
you, Erin?
practice.
I'm Erin Sarofsky. I own a creative studio in Chicago, and we're most known for our main title sequences, but we do strategy through delivery. I'll
Yeah.
pass it to Steve.
Hey, Steve Kazanjian. I'm the former CEO of Promax and former agency owner as well.
How about you, Lydia?
Hi, everybody. My name is Lydia Scarlett, and I'm assembling and leading creative teams on demand, usually for outsourcing and helping other studios increase their capabilities.
That's great. All right, Sam, bring us home.
Yeah, my name's Sam. I'm a 20-year director slash DP that has gone into the realm of AI and intersecting those two worlds together and launched an AI advertising agency and consulting agency.
Thank you guys. And thank you guys all for being here.
Yeah, thank
It's
you.
fun to assemble you all. We did a little bit of pre-gaming before we let everyone in and to do the introductions and to recognize the Venn diagrams between all of your experiences and some of the trends we're already seeing, just in the fact that the panel we've made up already kind of expresses some of the trend. All right, so let's kick things off with just some big observations of what we saw in 2025. If you guys each had a word or two words to kind of max out, what were the two big, what's the word or two words that you would summarize a 2025 trend?
Who wants to go first?
You, I guess you are.
All right, fine. Well, look, I think it's all about consolidation, and the 2020 through 2023 was really about like a bunch of drunken sailors on shore leave, buying whatever they could, and then when all that debt came due, they couldn't pay the bills, and so they consolidated, and we're seeing the echo effect of that. And unfortunately, our industry is getting massively hit from it.
Yeah, major consolidation. That's great. Who else?
I mean, I would think that 2025 is like, or going into 2026 is going to be like a full creative unlock personally, to where, now we can make stuff that we've always wanted to make and not just like pigeonhole ourselves to be like, I'm just a rotoscoper, I'm just this, I'm that. Like actually dig deep of what you want to do, or you got drawers of stuff out there that you've always wanted to make. And I think this is the year to actually do it, whether and to do AI to at least get the idea out there, whether it's proof of concept or a final deliver. But
Yeah,
I think
I'm almost
this is
looking
really,
forward to that the most.
yeah, me too.
I'm calling it future native content. Whatever this thing is giving birth to is going to be pretty amazing. Can't wait for it to show up one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Joe?
I might build on that. I might say feast and famine. We often call them feast or famine years. I think it's been a tough year for folks who struggle to adapt, and it's been an interesting and wild year for those who are really pushing boundaries.
Yeah. And how about you, Lydia?
I think independent creatives are on the rise due to multiple reasons. One of them being layoffs. There's so much amazing talent that used to be inaccessible is now right there marketing themselves on LinkedIn, and we're not. But also because, the new tools make it easier to create something for yourselves, either if you're an independent creator or a small studio. And I feel like the traditional gatekeeping system is kind of shifting a little bit as well. So that's what I'm noticing.
For sure. The word I want to put out there is like growth, but it's not. We often think of corporate growth like size, like things are getting bigger, things are expanding, but really a lot of growth happens at the hands of resistance. So like how you build a muscle is because you have resistance working in it. So there's like a maturing factor, kind of a growth that's taking place. and Erin, you were kind of pointing out as we kick things off is that, our generation, let's call it, has actually kind of seen a similar trend before, maybe even two. So there's a familiarity with it, but we're not comfortable with it. We're just familiar
No,
with it.
no. And I would say that's the thing I've seen this year is that there's just been a lot of change and transformation simultaneously across multiple industries. I mean, like you have the rise of AI, so that's like how we make things, right? You have we're watching like an industry collapse, the advertising industry. We're seeing a big shift of talent go from advertising direct to brand, but it's still kind of, all over the place there. Look what's happening in the entertainment industry. Like nobody is really talking about who they are. They're still trying to figure out what they got, So I
Mhm.
think like there's been these like we're in these kind of seismic shifts right now. So we're all kind of just riding the wave and it's, media is changing, like what we're seeing, like where we're seeing it is kind of changing and how clients are finding their audience is changing and so the asks are changing and the agencies and studios that are flexible and open and a little bit more agnostic to things and just like open to experimentation are going to be um, probably the most successful through it. Because I do think like while this is all happening, all this white space is opening.
Right.
Before it
Mhm.
was pretty set, like what you could do, where, how, the things you can make, how you can make them. And now I'm just seeing all like, well, there's an opportunity and there's an opportunity. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that. But it does take a lot of, I mean, I've spent 15 plus years building a studio to like have to pivot now is like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Uh,
Not
but like
comfortable. It's
not
not comfortable.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gets into everything operationally, how you're running, the kind of people you employ, all of that stuff it's pretty seismic, but
Steve,
there's
you use
you
the
either
term,
do it or you don't, right? Like you do it or you don't. Yeah.
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 Steve, you used the term what was the term? Transferable skills? Is that what you're
Oh,
talking
you
about?
got it. Yeah,
All right.
transferable skills. I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, we a lot of and this is I'm speaking as a former studio owner too, that we got so focused on the output of what we did versus the critical thinking about why we did it.
Yeah.
And Erin, this goes about what you're saying as well. And I think that it's really important for us is to take stock at the end of this year to understand what what was sticking with our clients, what wasn't sticking with our clients. Like where are I would say like from a Venn diagram value prop standpoint, it's like if you think about an intersection of three circles and the industry being one of them, it's not just like what's growing and what's not growing in the industry, but where's your curiosity in that growth in context to where the money's flowing. And that's the most critical thing you can do over the last couple of weeks of this year is really totally understand and map out where's the money going, right? And where can I play and how do I create a defensible position in that as a studio owner or just as a creative? Because if you do that, then it really allows you to really understand moving into 26 where you're going to place your bets.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah.
I saw you unmute, so.
Oh no, I thought I was unmuted, so I did mute. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
You did say something very interesting in there, Steve. You said, where is your curiosity in that? I
Yeah.
love the push to understand where the money is going, but you wouldn't believe the number of conversations I have with studio owners where they say, I suspect that money's flowing here. So do you think I should build a thing in order to capture that demand?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, do you even like it?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right? We are all, as creatives, we're all hardwired to lean into something. You're in there, unfortunately, we're in a buyer's market right now versus a seller's market, agencies being the sellers in this context. And the only way that you're going to truly be successful is you're spending that extra 10%, 20, 30%. And the only reason you do that is not to continue to hustle because you'll just get exhausted. It's your hardwired to want to solve it. Like if I think about Sam, like we were talking about you with AI, you're hardwired to want to solve this. Like you've probably always been at this intersection of creative and technology. I'm like, wow, this is a new tool for me, not unlike an Avid back in the day or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that for everyone who's listening and watching, I would just like look at that, like what have been those moments, those peak moments over the last year that have popped that you're like, wow, I'm just lying in bed thinking about that, not because I'm stressed, but because I'm innately curious about
Yeah.
it. And so, Joe, that's kind of like how I see that connection.
You know,
Go
I
ahead,
also
Joe.
see
I mean,
too,
Tim.
like this being like the year 2026 being like the year of taste, right? Because these tools are getting like, for if you take AI, like they're getting to the point where like just having really pretty stuff like isn't going to win anymore. It's not going to wow anyone. If everybody is like making really amazing looking stuff, then direction, taste, judgment, all that is what empathy, things like that. Being a director, I think that's what's going to win in 2026, honestly, is the taste. Because like I said, like if everybody's making amazing looking visuals, like what sets you apart now is going to be your story, your taste, and your direction, honestly.
Where is that going to
I
come
think.
from, Sam? When you talk about that, like where is it a technology advancement or a skill that you have to develop or
I
hiring
mean,
somebody with?
I don't know. Taste is hard to teach, right? It's like either you have or you don't. But I think you can acquire that skill. It's just having like real world experiences, like going out in the world, like traveling, like research, reading books, like the traditional ways of like getting experience and then having that taste. And if you're a storyteller, to tell that story, right? So that's what I think going forward is going to be the big like differentiator of like somebody just making content opposed to somebody like pushing and making stories and actually making stuff that brands want to purchase or films or wherever your lane is. So I just that's kind of how I'm seeing this going, you know. This I think the skills are very important though. Like you obviously got to learn the skills, you got to learn the techniques, you got to learn those things, but I think they're going to be less important going forward if everybody's stuff is looking so good, you
So,
know.
and Joe, we'll use Steve's term, but you're on the buyer side usually, like, or focus on the buyer side. What are people buying? What's the proposition you have to have? Are you finding similar things that Sam is saying? Is like, is there something beyond the technology that clients are asking for? Are we diving into more strategy, skill, talent,
It's
storytelling?
interesting because there are a million firms or sort of individuals posing as firms, as the case may be, right, who are offering the output of stuff at scale. And to Sam's point, that stuff is of varying degree of quality. That degree of quality improving over time as tools and our ability to use those tools improves, right? So then the question really isn't like, how much stuff can I get and how good to the lay person's eyes is that stuff? It's what is the use of that stuff in context getting for me? And so, like, where does it apply within sort of my marketing department or sort of like my business in general? And how contextually relevant is that stuff when I need it? And Erin, I think you've got something real interesting in terms of contextual relevance that I think fits this conversation really nicely.
What is that?
Oh, just the IP you've been developing for the last
Script.
year.
I mean, like just looking for ways to like we animated this goose and it's all done the old school way of, building it and texturing it and animating it and giving it personality and doing all that. And then we've been working on creating an engine to bring it to life beyond that so that once it's trained up with all the matrix of personality and aesthetics that we've created, that then that is replicatable more at scale. And so that's a very powerful thing because not only have we like created the character and the personality and do all that, but we can offer a way for them to be more responsive to culture in real time because to animate something the traditional way it took us a significant amount of time and effort and all of that, and if we were going to write a script it would still take us that same amount of time and effort. I mean, we'd have the model and all of that, but to be able to lean on AI as a piece of our pipeline to do that, it allows us to get that out to market super quickly at a much better cost to our client. But it's still all rooted in like the craftsmanship we've already created, which is the beauty of it. And also in creating, the lore that, controls the model, all of that, like that there's still artistry involved in programming that. Like there's a technologist, but there's also an animator at the helm there to kind of make sure it's being trained up on brand, so to speak. Yeah.
Lydia,
And I
usually this is like I would say traditionally what we've done for the last 20 years is outsource some of this work that AI seems to be taking over. So if you think about what Erin just talked about, where there's a model being built or art direction coming from the West and going to the East to be outsourced, are you seeing a change in the trends of what your companies are being hired to do or what you're being asked to do in finding people or talent internationally for the marketplace?
Ye- Yes, I've had an increase of new types of roles that I have to look for when I assemble teams. And that's mostly because if we tap back into the idea of curiosity, I think it's not about only about our curiosity, it's also about the curiosity of the clients, because I see a shift into the type of needs that there are. So clients are moving beyond the usual web, usual screens, medium into immersive, spatial, into experiential work, into things that touch, into interactive videos rather than just the usual pre-rendered videos. So I see a lot of new need for creatives that have some sort of tech, additional tech skills, or maybe teams that have both creative and tech skills together. And yeah, so there's this kind of like shift into the skill sets, which comes from the shifting client needs as well.
Steve, is that the scary part? Like, if you, I think about the people that you're working with that are grab those skills, have a lifetime working at a network, have a lifetime working in a certain field, and now the tech world showed up, and maybe they are not as advanced in the tech side or whatever. Is that some of the reality that's happening out there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say like yes and, right? Yes and, but remember, when you're a lot of the work that I do is I say is between that, like I call it act two and act three, so from mid-career to executive career. And usually what happens at that time, there are life events. You get downsized, consolidation, what you're selling, no one's buying, et cetera, et cetera. And what's challenging is for a lot of creatives at that point, because we all came up from being on the box. Like literally, I was on Photoshop 1.0 back in the day, right? Um, that you feel, and that which made you successful way back when, you have this knee-jerk reaction of wanting to get back on the box. Like I can do it, I can get into Illustrator, I can get in After Effects
Uh,
and do what I need to do, right? And the reality is that's the exact last thing you need to be doing, right? What people are buying for is your 20, 30 years of experience in the industry of what you know really, really well. I mean, to what Lydia was saying is like there's a lot of talent out there, a lot of young talent out there that can actually do that work. And I think this goes back into the what we were talking about before around, and I think Joe, I think you were saying this was like the storytelling aspect of it, right? How are we telling the story and that just comes from selling content for decades to be able to do that. So it's a long-winded way of saying is that no one is asking you to be able to code, right? Or to be a growth marketer, but people are asking to understand that as a medium for communication and marketing, even design and creative, to be able to understand how to connect, right? How to connect with that audience. And that's what you should be the master at. So it shouldn't scare you. It's just like it's another medium, right?
yeah, but you have to open your mind up to something. I mean, there's something
Look,
about
in
human
your
nature that says I'm valuable because I do this one thing, and if that one
yeah,
thing moves, that cheese moves, all of a sudden you're thinking I have no value anymore.
right. Your value, your specificity, or I like to say your angularity, should not be contingent on technology because you will always become obsolete. The second you learn it in 5 years, will become obsolete. It's about the network. Who do you know? Your reputation, how well you do that work, and your unique point of view around being able to connect. Those are the things that you should be holding throughout your career.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I respect about what you're doing, Sam, what you're doing, Aaron, what you get into, Lydia, is that it's the people that are stepping into that future sooner than others and asking and getting past that like moment of doubt or worry or whatever that thing is that slows us down for that transition.
Yeah, but so many times this year, if we're looking back, so many times it feels like oh, I'm gonna read all of those newsletters and I'm gonna be like up to date with all of the latest news. And then there's so much FOMO into this abundance of information. You're like, where is that one friend that knows exactly what happened today, 2 hours ago, which is too late?
Yeah, right.
Just follow my
There's,
Instagram channel. You'll find out all
Yeah.
yes.
that.
Yeah, so and I hear that from artists as well because they're like, oh no, it's easier for me to just do work in the traditional way because learning something new is just going to be so much waste of time. And some productions that could have the potential of integrating, for example, AI, they do go back into the traditional medium because that is easy to calculate. That we know how many hours this needs to be done in, and we know what people we need there. We know all the icebergs already. Whereas it kind of feels like it becomes either a passion project or like a self-indulgence when we go into like, let's try this new tool on this new project, but let's tell everybody that we have no idea what it's gonna end up being or looking like or how much time we're gonna spend into it. Are we ready to play? Yeah, okay, let's do it.
This is why I want to go intern for Sam for like a week. I want to see what it's actually like to convert this crazy technology that you don't know the output into a deliverable and actually trying to deliver a good.
Yeah, you could just watch me bang my head on the desk for like hours on end,
For a week.
and not get out of my seat for like hours on end. No, I mean it's getting better for sure, but yeah, like to go from idea to deliver is like the roadmap is so like it's like pick your own adventure and you hope you don't go down a bumpy road and then have to like start all over. Like it's not as clear as it used to be, but it's kind of like exciting and in that realm. But like when you start clocking in 10, 12 hours of like one problem, you're like, oh man, like I could have just done this traditionally or whatever,
Yeah, right.
But it's like leaning into it and learning those tools. I mean, you get the like with anything in life, you got to get the reps in, right? So it's just funny because people that don't use the tools, like not everybody, but like I've had like brands reach out and be like, how much does this cost? And I give them a number like, oh my God, I can't believe it's that much. Like what do you think it is? You just type one thing and the whole like a 60-second spot just like pops up and it's amazing. It's like
We do.
yeah, it's like and I yeah, and I've had like I had a client send me something like we did this whole thing in AI. I was like, dude, that would have been way quicker just to go out and shoot it. You would have like saved time and money if so you got to kind of like realize it's still a tool at the end of the day. Like I still go out and shoot. It's not like I'm not like so binary, like black and white, like cameras are in the trash now. I'm only AI. It's like I am heavily in AI for sure. I'm not going to deny that, but it's like I could look at a project like, let's just go shoot that. You know what I mean? But it's like these big, elaborate shoots that would cost billions of dollars. Now you can do an AI for, obviously quite a bit cheaper. But so it's just like, yeah, finding the tools, finding the budgets and kind
Do
of
you have to put like a
but
lot of like caveats and rules and understandings out there when you kick something off and say, listen, we
yeah,
don't really
like
know what we're going to get, and you have to be
it's
okay with that.
yeah, it's more like in this, it's just a statement of work that kind of the brands will get or agencies, but it's kind of like, there is a section that's like, we will try to nail the physics, but this is AI. So, water might not flow that way or whatever it is. Right. Like,
Yeah.
and the tools are just getting better and better every day. But yeah. And people are pretty receptive to like knowing that AI is not perfect. Right. And,
Yeah.
and I think one of the big unlocks too, kind of going forward would be not leaning into like showing that it was an AI, like go all the way, like BTS of your project. Like, yeah, this was AI and this is how I made it like start to finish. Right. Like just so people can see the work that goes into it and then maybe try it for themselves,
That's cool. Joe, I was kind of thinking of you as like just how much encouragement you put out there for people to think differently and take the risk, and how hesitant people can be to actually do it. And maybe it's easy for us as outsiders, coaches and consultants, to be able to say like, no, weirdly, you can go do it, but then someone else has to do the hard work and believe in it. But I think you're seeing more and more people with, we'll say, the curiosity trigger, like stepping into new work and doing new work and putting new propositions out there.
For better or worse, I think that's because the status quo cannot hold, right? There was, for a very long time, a value chain of commercial creativity, especially on the brand side, where brands had different projects, a lot of them related to marketing, some of them related to corporate comms. They would hire studios for this, agencies for this. Agencies would hire different types of studios for different types of work. And you just waited for a stakeholder to greenlight a project, and then you got it, and you acted like you were doing business development. It's not meant to be that critical, but I'm trying to simplify. And that status quo, for the reasons we've talked about, and we can make a choice to get into that more or not, does not exist anymore. So, so if you want to live the same life you lived 5, 10 years ago, you just can't. So the idea that you would take a risk is no longer as scary as the idea that you wouldn't take a risk. So the thing that I've been shouting about for a couple of years now seems a lot less scary than it did maybe when I first started shouting it. But I find that to be quite exciting, right? The idea that there was a seasonality to the business. Brands show up in this quarter with work, they're quiet in this quarter, they show up in this quarter with work. Even that I found in 2025 to be a bit turned on its head. And so when you see an opportunity where you believe you can create value for a stakeholder that you maybe know or don't know, you have to go in, assert that you can create that value, whether you've actually done it before or not, and then figure out a way to do it if you want your business to work. And I find that to be very fun, very motivating and exciting, assuming you believe in your ability to sort of like execute on creative work, which I know we all do.
How about you other guys? And anything else, like seeing something on the adoption side of it, adoption of technology or process, whatever, easy or hard, resistance with your team or resistance with your clients or acceptability? I don't know. Anybody see any trends that way?
The only pushback we get is legal. It's just what we can use, what we can't use. Some agencies and clients are more just conservative and legal forward, and some are like, fuck it, do whatever it takes. You know, like, so that's all we're seeing. But most people are very down to use things that are gonna, you know,
So you're saying that adoption's pretty easy, pretty high. It's not, doesn't feel high risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, to go back to what Joe said. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say go back to what Joe said about like, oh no, it's all good. About like the seasons. Like that's kind of like spot on. Like usually this part of the season is like nothing's happening, and like this year has just been like all of a sudden like December, like the phone started, I was like, what is happening? Like usually like nothing happens in December. So yeah, it's weird. Like this, I don't know if the seasons are shifting or there is no seasons anymore. It's just like I don't know what it is really, but yeah, it's interesting that seasons, quote unquote, are feel very different.
Very unpredictable, aren't they?
Well, I mean, the seasons were built around fall launches, right? Everything went to fall launches was tied back into, you know, kids back in school. What I was going to say is, which is interesting is, you know, our industry is anything but constant, and our early success was predicated on the cannibalization of a previous technology and industry. Right, so desktop destroyed post houses, cable destroyed broadcast, streaming destroyed cable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. From a content standpoint, content is bifurcating in a significant extreme like never before. So we're having destination programming and tent poles and you're going to see, as it depends on where Warner Brothers goes, ultimately lands, but you'll see fewer and fewer of those tent poles that are going to be more and more more money is going to be spent, more focus. But the other side is, you know, we're in a space of not just the rise. I'm not going to say influencer, but just general content creators and now social sellers, which will be huge in 2026. Those are great. That technology there is where that future is going to be, is where that blue ocean is going to be. And the reason why is because if it is a buyer's market and the buyers can choose whoever they want and they're fearful for their jobs because 20,000, you think of the ad community as well as entertainment marketing community, you could easily say 20,000, 25,000 people have lost their jobs since the beginning of last year.
Yeah,
in that space, right? No one is going to bet on anyone new. They're going to go back to their same players they always use that they know, because everyone's going to be risk adverse, right? Especially the course of next year until things get right out. That being said, those people who understand technology and understand how to harness that and make that faster will find amazing futures and new monetization strategies. So it's of how you can actually do business in all these other verticals. And I think that's, I think what's really, really exciting. It's no different. Like Tim, I look at when you and I started, we reinvented what a show package was just because we could do it on a Mac, you know, and started reality TV through that whole thing, right?
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
started it, but we're part of the start of that.
yeah.
So
I mean, the
I think it should
evolutions
be
are,
exciting. Yeah.
yeah, the evolutions are definitely exciting when it comes to that proposition. It is when you're the one on the outside, basically looking in, it can kind of look kind of scary because you don't really understand where it starts and stops. But I do appreciate the trends you're talking about, Steve. Is like one thing you have to recognize is traditional format, traditional television, traditional seasons are all
Yeah.
shut. Online
Yeah.
doesn't have launch parties anymore or launch events anymore, and upfronts are almost a joke to even think that there was everything
Yeah.
like that.
Great.
And I think that the last thing I'll say to that is I think that you're going to see a speed of production unlike you've ever seen before. I call it like the Zara model. If you guys are familiar with Zara, how they can bring things from like a trend to a showroom in like 6 days or something like that. Um, as we start understanding what's hitting and what's not hitting in content, people are going to, and the data points are there. More and more content is going to be created. It's going to be start create faster and faster and faster and get to market within really narrow windows.
Yeah.
And I think that's another interesting thing of like how do you optimize your production pipeline to be able to capitalize on those demands.
Yeah, Erin, I was thinking we started 2025 or really wrapped up 2024 in Milan at DDD. And we were talking to the brands and talking to these other studio owners and really kind of understanding that like all the things are breaking, maybe not for the worst, in some case for the better, but the thought of delivering on the promise of digital marketing really kind of like the bubble burst. And the agencies and the brands couldn't really keep up with the promise that the digital marketing was always going to have some growth potential, infinite growth potential. It didn't happen. And the technology now seems to be create an ability to work at a speed that we can maybe meet some of those digital needs, the scale at which we have to deliver all the deliverables. Not if a human doesn't have to make every possible format of every possible language for the same commercial, maybe the distribution for a commercial will get out there and it will kind of have an uptick. But to hear that trend maybe just 15 months ago and then seeing some of the reality in such a short time is very interesting.
Crazy. Yeah, the cadence of things is like so fast right now. Not just the evolving technology, but the landscapes of all these organizations, it's very destabilizing, I would
Yeah.
say, you know. Um, and just seeing how many people are getting laid off even still and still looking for work as in terms of clients and things like that. It's you know, it's still alarming. That said, like at some point people are going to start landing places and that means like doors are going to open. So it's just a matter of like keeping on top of everybody. Whatever the landscape, whatever they're making, people are going to have to make something and we're going to have to be open to making things a little bit differently for different places with the same people but that land in new spots. You know, so I don't know, maybe that's an oversimplification of it, but
Well, I think of often it's like maybe we all share this. It's like managing fear.
yeah.
There's a thought that the current situation feels unusual, and that makes us feel like, oh, this is going to happen forever, and we kind of like just give up too soon. And then if you let yourself the time play out, then the truth starts to reveal itself, and the fear kind of goes away.
Yeah.
And I want to say like some of the issue of, maybe 2024 and 2025 financially has been like horrible to deal with. So we've been counting pennies, wondering if we'll ever kind of get through this mess. And then Joe, I think you might have brought this up, but then in the last month, it feels like the last month is equal to the whole
year.
previous year for people with the amount of money that's been flowing into the marketplace, the amount of work that needs to be done in just the last few weeks. It's really incredible. So that's like the unpredictable nature, I think, is if we're sitting in the right seat, gives us this fear. And I think we're all kind of saying like, we're going to make it past it. There's nothing really to be afraid of. We might not understand it, but we're not going to all collapse because of something.
Yeah.
I agree. It's been, well, number one, it's been an absolutely wild December, just like unprecedented levels of sort of conversation and activity. So, congratulations to those who are reaping the benefits. But the other thing I want to pick up on, Erin, is something you said is like folks are going to land places and they're going to need things made. If you are measuring the things you make against an old ruler and there's a new paradigm, you're going to have a hard time selling and then delivering on those forms of value if you're still using the same old ruler. And so the encouragement, I think, as we think about wrapping 2025 and what has worked for the studios who have been successful, like from my purview, is like throwing those old rulers out and just asking ourselves, well, what can be made with the competencies and the skills and experience and just sort of like the general ingenuity of the human beings involved. That certainly includes tools and new uses of them, but also just our general willingness to sort of add value in new ways. That's got to be a through line for me for 2025.
Yeah.
Anyone else thought? Yeah, Joe, I think that's a kind of a great perspective to look at it. There, I think we've touched on a few things. One, obviously the technology side. I don't think there's anybody confused on what the technology is going to do or how it's going to advance certain things, maybe replace some of the workload that we have. Hopefully most of us feel a sense of relief that we don't have to do some of the tedious tasks anymore. Or Sam, what you're pointing out is like not only that, but there's opportunity actually to take what might not have ever been possible and actually make it because of just financial limitations. And now you can kind of get stuff out there.
Yeah, financial and physical, right? So it's like, getting a whole cast and crew together of something that just some short film that you don't have money to make, and just to get the idea out there, get the reps and be like, oh, maybe that was a good idea. And then, like I've said before, that could be your proof of concept, right? Or it's just something you show your friends, or it's just something you put on the internet. It's just like, that's, there's like the argument that AI is making us less creative. I'm like 100% opposite of it. I think it makes us more creative because now we can just get the idea and run with it. It's not like, because I used to have an idea before, then immediately it was like roadblock. Like, I have this cool idea for a film. Roadblock. I can't afford the location. Roadblock. I can't afford the actors. Roadblock. I can't name whatever step in the filmmaking process that you can't do yourself, and then time and money and physicality. So, I think once we get over the whole idea of like AI's bad, slop, hate it, and be like, maybe use the tools and check it out and try for yourself, and like just try. Don't look at it as like, what could I make for a business to start off with? Like, what's an idea I've always wanted to do, and see if you can make an AI and see how you like it. And if you like it, you're like, wow, actually, this is a cool tool that I could see myself using. Or this thing sucks, I don't want to ever use it again. But at least I think
any of us in this panel that thinks AI is bad, right? I don't think, maybe I had a bias in choosing you all, but I don't think even none of us have that thought, right?
Well, that's awesome, because I like to hear that. I mean, I'm, on the internet, I get a lot of shit. So
sure, yeah,
yeah.
Like, so I kind of come with a defensive tone sometimes talking about it, but
but if you could talk to that person, what would you want them to understand?
I've tried, man. I actually like replied to a bunch of people on LinkedIn that kind of like were hating, and I just like was, just laying it out like, this is like day one of these tools. I'm just showing like what's possible, and like think about how you could apply this skill like going forward. And it kind of like stopped the conversation for a lot of it. So I was like, okay, either that worked or they're like, screw this, and like bailed. But instead of being like super defensive, I was just like trying to be like, this is what I'm, I'm not saying your job's going away. I'm not trying to say that this is the end all be all. Like, just look at it from a different lens of, and all of it, I really think stems from fear for most of it, like the hatred towards AI. It's really fearful. I mean, it is. It's like, the fear of losing your job, the fear of losing your livelihood, the fear of losing whatever it is. And then it's like, that's the closest thing to blame for some people.
I do think some people will lose their jobs, but the ones I think are going to lose their jobs are the ones that think they're going to lose their jobs.
It's the ones that don't want to like adapt and I tell people, it's like, I don't know, let's say you work in the creative field, but you work in like one department. And I always go back to rotoscoping. I don't mean to pick a rotoscoper. I think rotoscoping, that skill is amazing, but like, you didn't go to school to learn rotoscope. You're like, I'm going to go be a rotoscoper. Like you wanted to make films, you wanted to be a director, you want to be some, whatever you wanted to do. I guarantee 99%, maybe there's a 1% out there who's like, I want to rotoscope. That's all I want to do. But like,
Yeah.
I just think there's like, you had bigger ideas, but you fell into this because it was good money and like, it wasn't so bad as better than like being a plumber or whatever. But I think AI is now allowing you, hey man, like go try that thing that you always wanted to do. What did you like dig deep? Like what was the thing that got you even to pursue a creative field? So
Yeah. What are you gonna say, Steve?
I was going to say that, I mean, if we just look at the logic chain for a second, when tools become more accessible, more content is created, right? And we've seen that over the last 30 years, right?
Totally.
The democratization of content creation, curation, distribution, more content is out there and more people see it, et cetera, et cetera. So as an AI is going to exponentially allow a lot more slop, like we were talking about before, but also a lot of great stuff will come out of this.
Totally.
So as we are on this exponential curve of content, there will be an exponential need for marketing and creative and support of that content. Now, that's true. You can't deny that, right? But what you can argue about is how is that content going to be marketed, is going to have creative support on it, what are the ads going to look like, what's the digital marketing going to look like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the solution, right? And so the tool as a content creation tool, but also as a content marketing tool or just a marketing tool will go hand in hand with each other. So, when I first started in the industry, we spent $2.5 million on a network package, right?
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, or like, I would do a lower third for like $1,500, whatever it was. It was crazy, right? That money is not going to go back up. I mean, so we have to learn how we actually, and who had said it earlier about the concept of, I wrote this down because I love the output. I think it was you, Joe, the output of stuff at scale, right? That is true, right? But that can be in sync. That doesn't mean it needs to be bad. And that can be in sync with this massive amount of content that is going to be created. We, as the experts of the marketers and the creatives associated with the content, how are we now going to support that growing industry? And to me, that's super exciting, right? Because it changes everything. So the whole is like, oh, you're killing the industry. The industry is cannibalizing itself. It has always cannibalized itself and will continue to do that. Our job, because we decided to be in this crazy field, is to figure out like what are those opportunities for us in that. And that should be looked at as something very positive and exciting and not something as like, my God, I'm so concerned.
I 100% agree with you, Steve. But I also have to say, I do miss the $2.5 million network package days.
Yeah, because and the lunches at the post
Oh,
house.
The lunches at the post house were
margaritas
amazing.
at margarita mix, and all that stuff, right? Of course, we all do.
You're like, I gotta
not
go
happening.
spend the next 4 hours sitting in a comfortable chair watching someone else work while I drink really amazing coffee. Okay,
Yeah, I
Those
mean,
days
come on. That was propped up on ego, that whole business to begin with. I mean,
but it was well-paying ego. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And the chairs were always so comfortable. The chairs were great.
They were so great. I don't have any of those chairs in my house. Oh, sorry, Lydia.
No worries. I do get the same sense of excitement of being in a moment when the industry is shifting and transforming. Like I've listened to stories of how things moved from film to digital, and I was like, oh, that must have been exciting for some, troublesome for others. Some adapted, some went along with the change. But overall, that did not stop the industry in any way. Or when CGI came along and some of the jobs on set became obsolete. It feels like this is a very exciting moment, and we're part of it. And kind of, it's not like there's an academy for it or a university where we have to be enrolled in order to figure it out. And like, it's conversations like these that are actually shaping both ways to approach it and who to ask. Sam, I'm definitely going to be in your DMs asking for the latest news on AI.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I do feel, Steve, that this is indeed a very exciting time. It's also, I mean, as any exciting transformation, it comes with bigger questions. And, we look at AI from the perspective of our industry, but there's a bigger picture of how is AI affecting us all in all of our definition of being human. But I guess that's for another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
on our industry side, there's always been like a boogeyman at the beginning, right? Like I think digital was that boogeyman
Yeah, totally.
right. It was like now AI is like the super boogeyman, like probably more so than these other ones were. But it was always like the dudes and the people, I don't say dudes, men and women that were like, this is how we do it. And now this new thing happens, and now it's like somebody's just pressing a button. Like I remember hearing that when digital cameras came out, like, oh, you're not really a photographer, you're just pressing a button. I was like, I don't know about all that, but I'm not in the dark room, but
Yeah. What comes through the cameras? Go ahead, Erin.
I was just gonna say, like, for all like the work we're doing with AI and experimentation, still the majority of work we're doing is how we've done it for many years. So it's like this transformation is happening, but it's not unless you've made, like Sam, like the decision to dive completely in, and it's still a transformation. It's still happening over time. So just even if you're finding small ways to interject or to use a tool or something like that, I think it's just about being open-minded to it. All the software is going to integrate it into their shit anyway. So it's like,
totally.
and it already is. So
Mhm.
it's one of those things, like the tools, you can either be an early adopter and play with all these kind of piecemeal tools, or you can kind of wait for those tools to be absorbed into the software you're already using. So I think it's going to take a little less firepower, a little maybe less people, but the equipment's going to just get more and more powerful.
Yeah,
And
to lean into what you're saying, like that, Artlist dropped this 2026 or 2025 trend report, and I'm just reading here, they surveyed over 6,500 creators across 140 countries. They said 87% are already using AI, and about 2/3 use it weekly. So that was like a pretty alarming number. I did not think it'd be 87%. So it's being used whether the people are talking about it or not, so that's a very interesting trend.
Great. Think about how much money you guys have spent over the years just to put something out there for it to only be rejected, right?
Totally,
So I say it gets you through the nose faster. As a studio, if I'm spending, 10% of a budget or more often on just stuff that is just going to be wholesale, like, no, not that. And if I can whip that up quicker and like get through the no faster, I can then get to the thing that's a yes, however it's going to be built. Like, even if you're not touching AI, once you already have like, that's directionally what I'm looking for, great, let's start making the thing. Then I can put more of, that's all of a sudden spending less money. I'm still, if it's $100,000 budget, I'm still spending, what I'm spending on the project itself. So I'm just spending it on the yes more than I'm spending it on the no's. And
Yeah,
I think that for me is how it's going to ultimately transform the business. And if I don't have to spend as much money on Roto, that means I get an extra 3D artist, or I get an extra matte painter for a few days, or I could spend a little extra time in editorial, or hell, I could send it to a proper colorist or something like that. That for me transforms the quality of the work. Which is why I ultimately asked that initial question in our channel when Tim was like, hey, if you have a question. I am curious, like, how we're seeing like our clients, what they're valuing, like from a financial perspective. Like, what are they willing to spend money on now, and what are they not willing to spend money on anymore? And I'm curious what you guys are seeing there.
So I think, Erin, to your point about like kind of getting to the no faster, right? So like all innovation, there's a bell curve of adoption. So whether you have more eggs in this basket or fewer, like it's coming, and you're accountable for articulating your value. And if your value is we use AI to make stuff, you're fucked anyway. So who cares, right? But what clients are not paying for is rounds of revision over weeks and the warm bodies it takes to create them. That's what I continue to see across industries, whether those clients are in brands or entertainment. And so what they are paying for is the output of experts over and over and over and over again. So the idea that it would, like, whether it's sort of like strategic or creative output, clients are not fucking paying for it to take you 6 months to get to final output. That's, timelines are compressed, and there's a reason for that, because we can do stuff, because we can get to know faster. I feel like that has got to have been universal.
I was gonna say that too, Joe. Like, money, there are fewer dollars in the marketplace, and there are fewer people. So money is going somewhere, and people are going somewhere. We know that's the truth. But it seems that the people that are resilient to this change are the ones that are understanding the creative execution of it, opposed to the skilled execution. And I almost feel like, sadly, the Full Sails and SCADs of the world that have been training people how to use a piece of software, those individuals that just learn software without the necessary talent or skill or creative desire to overcome something, they're the ones that are going to be hurting through this process, because the technology can replace, clicks on a screen. But it does seem that there is a new trend of value coming up of, can you solve a bigger problem? And many of us who were creatively trained to do something, instead of leaning into the problem solving nature of it, I think that's the transition most of us are trying to figure out what it means to ask bigger questions and take on bigger responsibility.
So when you say they're asking us to solve a problem, I'm really curious. I want to dig into that a little bit. Are they asking to solve a business problem for us, or are they asking us to solve a production problem? As in, I only have 2 weeks and $50,000.
I think it's an awareness problem. I think everyone knows where everyone is, but everyone is in the same space. And how can you most effectively raise awareness, drive eyeballs?
Yeah,
that's
visibility for a brand, so it's like standing out.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's visibility. How do you drive stickiness?
Core of everything we're doing is eyeballs on a screen somewhere, or eyeballs somewhere to sell.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, I think that like that the problem is, and this is someone who once again came up through motion design, is that we learned to actually do that kind of narrative storytelling, the visual storytelling, as what we sold versus really what were we doing at the time, right? And we were selling the exact wrong thing. And when the industry shifted, it became pretty problematic. I think so. Everyone on the call should take stock on exactly what are their clients, what are their current and potential clients buying them for, right? And then how do you move past the functional into not, oh, I'm a brand storyteller, or not some jargonistic thing, but really what business problem are you solving for them? And Tim, you say this all the time, what business problem are you solving for them? And then how do you make sure that that's repeatable, that there's a value prop associated with it, that you could squeeze it even further so you can be, I mean, and I read this all, there's not a, our industry doesn't suffer from how am I saying it? Like getting the content out there and knowing where the audience is. It's really, at the end of the day, it's an awareness problem, because there's so much content.
Or an engagement problem,
Engagement problem. Yeah.
I think my push on that, or build to it rather, is that if awareness or engagement are the only business problem you're solving for, there's a possibility that you haven't asked enough questions.
No question.
And my push is, Tim, when you said budgets are shrinking, if you are asking and finding the ask behind the ask, I actually find that there are studios for whom budgets are not shrinking. They're staying the same and growing, but it's because they've done the work of solving a business problem. If you're solving a production problem, of course, your budgets are shrinking because of all the trends we've identified. And a question I often have to ask, like, honestly, to founders and leaders is like, do you know what a business problem is? Not only are you solving it, but like, do you know what that is when we say that word out loud? And I think that's a challenge to all of us, sort of like listening and talking, is like, hey, do we know what that thing is when we're saying we come into your organization and solve a business problem? Like, what are we asserting that we do?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say 90% of it in advertising is drive sales, right? Like that's probably the biggest thing.
Of
Like
course it is.
keep your head
Right.
over water. So it's like I think that's the North Star. But having the awareness and ways to keep eyeballs and ways to drive that is like another huge problem too, because like you said, there's just so much content out there, And I always hear like people's attention spans are so small now, you gotta like hit it quick. But I don't know if that's completely true because I mean I'll listen to like a 3 hour podcast. And I know
Yeah,
tons
longer
of
and
people
Mhm.
so it's like I don't know if it's an awareness or not. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's a attention problem. It's more like a content problem. Like,
so this
what
is where I get into like sorry to cut you off,
oh
but
no, it's all
like
good.
if we're solving business problems and you're working with an ad agency who's been hired, who's commissioning you and has been hired by, Coca-Cola to do some ads or whatever, right? Like, um, presumably they have solved that problem and then you're just like executing on that. And so I find when I'm in those situations in those rooms, when I ask those bigger questions, often the agency doesn't have an answer. Like they're so far removed from like the
Mhm.
strategy and everything. And it's just like this is a cool thing or this is a holiday thing we always do or whatever. Like
Mhm.
it's just kind of bullshit. So no matter what we do in those kind of areas is basically like just don't do something that's going to get them fired. Just make it look
Yes.
better and like but then when we are direct to brand, you know, there's a lot of reading between the lines and a lot of it is in the questions and the kind of people we put on the calls to suss things out. And I think that, you know, it's like where you fish is how you eat. you
Yeah,
know
that's exactly
So
right.
it's just
What
like a
you're hunting
different,
is what you're eating.
yeah, it's a
Exactly.
different thing. So I find just like on different calls with different people, I just have different teams on. I feel like it's a very interesting world right now because how you talk to one client is not the language you use to talk to another client is,
100%.
like I wouldn't put a strategist on with an agency. It wouldn't be worth my time.
Mm.
But even, for a simple animation assignment for a brand, I would throw a strategist on the phone because they will ask an interesting question that could unlock us presenting something that turns into a year of work.
Mhm.
And to
Aaron,
be honest, I think that's exactly where premium has the tendency to go if
Yeah.
there's that access to the direct brand. I want to follow up on what Joe was saying about the fact that some budgets have not shrinked for some people, and that's because some brands are ready to pay premium for existing trusted relationships. For others, a premium is equivalent to having responsible speed, or in a way, like speed of delivering something with top-notch quality results. For others, it's maybe the capacity to produce things that can be reused over a long period of time or modularized, some more of a system rather than a one-off delivery sprint.
Smart.
I see it so different for so many people, but it is a lot of times it is that conversation of having them ask themselves the questions of like, oh, wait a second, we don't need to just tick the box of having this campaign right now. We can actually like create something that is more long lasting, more impactful. So if you're in that conversation, I think that's a premium conversation to have.
Yeah, to me, Aaron, the interesting part about the question you asked, do they want us to solve a business problem or a production problem? What's interesting is that we have to ask that question
Mhm.
because I feel like before it was really clear, as you pointed out, who was solving which problem. And today it's not clear who's solving the problem. And so that evolution is actually kind of exciting if you want to and can step into it. It can be very scary, or it can put you out of business if you don't even understand that that question needs to be asked, and you're just pushing a commodity that will be replaced by some technology in the future. So
Yeah.
it's a very curious moment that ability is able to be that question is able to be asked, and you can find an answer and find a value proposition in this time. I have a feeling the silos will be worked out again in the future, and there'll be
Mhm.
workers and doers and thinkers and makers and value props, all that kind of stuff. But right now it's very disrupted, so it's kind of exciting while confusing.
Yeah.
It is 3:01. I said when we were in the warm up, I said this time's gonna go by very fast and make sure you guys had an hour, but now it's an hour and 1 minute. Um, there's probably 7 more things I wanted to ask you guys, but I really should probably wrap it up and give everyone a chance to go start their Christmas vacation at some point in the next week
LOL.
before we stop this. It could take that long.
So funny.
Thank you all for being part of this thing. This was
Yeah, thank
such a
you.
great conversation.
Thank
so
you,
powerful.
Tim.
Yeah, of course. There's many other kind of thoughts and ideas that I'm sure we can kind of pick up the trend later on. But each of you contributed so much to the weekly briefing in this last year. I had you on as separate guests, and you guys put so much power and thought behind things. And I follow you all on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I love what you guys are putting out there. So thanks for being leaders and keeping the industry going. You're really amazing. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Equally,
And-
Tim.
Yeah,
Equally.
thank you everybody on the panel too. Is really our being on here with you guys. It was really insightful in everyone's story within those last year. And so
Yeah, pretty fun.
Yeah, enjoyed this very much. Thank you all.
Of course.
And
All
hi to
right.
everybody up there. A lot of familiar faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
fun faces.
And good
whatever.
to see everyone in the
More
everyone
conversation
listening.
can be
Thank
had in
you.
community. Feel free to jump in that. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, you can go to the App Store, whatever you're on, and just look for RevThink, and you can get easier access, ask us questions, put things out there. So we appreciate you guys all, and have a happy holiday. We're not going to be here next week for the weekly briefing or the following week, so it's a 2-week break.
Happy
It was a
holidays.
good wrap up. So
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good
Bye.
one.
Thank you,
Bye,
Tim.
guys.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. See you.